our lives to be mediocre, but we have the opportunity to play like gods for the next half of football. But we can't be afraid to lose. There's no room for fear in this game.
This is the New Hampshire High School Football Show.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
You blitz all night! If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out.
The New Hampshire High School Football Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
You got heart, charisma, and a lot of skill.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier and Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose.
Let's go play some football. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the New Hampshire High School Football Show. We bring it to you each and every Saturday morning live on the radio, News Radio 610 and 96.7. My name is Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. In-house special guest this morning, Kurt Hines, head coach of the Bedford Bulldogs. You know this coach is ready to play some football tonight. We tell him, come on in here at 8:30. We'll talk some Bedford, Exeter with you. He shows up at 8 o'clock. We're glad to have you, Coach. You said you woke up at what, 5 this morning? You couldn't sleep?
A little bit before that, but I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Play this game in the afternoon or heck, just right after the show, right? We'll kick things off a little bit early.
I would love that.
We'll get Coach Ball on the horn. We got John Kesty, our videographer. Different position. He's staring right at me this morning. I like it. And we can't see our producer, Jeremy Mahaney, behind John. We get the video cast of the show on nhsportspage.com. We were out on the scene in the Lakes region last night. Dave Haley going home, so to speak. Although not to the Guilford High School. We were at Laconia High School, and we saw an awesome Division II game between Laconia and St. Thomas. We'll talk about that one in full. We'll obviously preview the big Exeter-Bedford game tonight. Coach Hines going to be coaching in that 7 o'clock kickoff at Bill Ball Stadium. But why don't we get to the scoreboard, brought to you, as always, by our friends from the New Hampshire Liquor Commission, the Division of Enforcement, and that Buyers Beware campaign, reminding all adults it's against the law to provide alcohol to minors, even if you have a major upset and you're going out and you want to celebrate. You just can't buy a round of drinks for the whole team. It just doesn't work that way, folks. It's against the law. Here's the scoreboard with Dave.
We were buying drinks at the 405 last night in Laconia, but it wasn't for the kids, so just want to be clear to that.
All right, good, because I got my people watching you,
No,
Dave.
Matt Swarmstead was there, though, but he was drinking a Coke, so there you go. So starting Division I, just roll them down. Nashua North with a 28-14 win over Merrimack. Does that surprise you a little bit?
That was on Thursday, so no,
Thursday?
It does not
Okay.
surprise me.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I found out about it Thursday night. Like
I didn't know they played it.
it.
Why did they play on Thursday?
Well, because there's 3 home teams, or 3 teams that play their home games at Cello Stadium. Nashua South, even though South was on the road last night. So
I know
that
I could
blows
ask you
that
a
theory.
Nashua question.
BG plays Pinkerton this afternoon. I don't know why they played it, but I like it.
Yeah.
Gives you a chance to get out and do a little scouting.
Yeah. Salem rolls over Alvin 36-14. I think Salem is absolutely legit. I think they're showing that every week. But Salem, the Blue Devils, 4-1 on the season. And, again, probably most likely with them comes down to Halloween night against Londonderry. I have a feeling we could be there for that one. But 36-14 win over a good Alvin team who's much improved. I would say that there were 2 huge upsets last night. And we were at one of them. The other one would be Manchester Memorial. Peter Colcord, who I want to give a shout-out to, has done such a great job. I think moving Isaac Valens, the quarterback, has really changed that team. 14-13 win over Concord, the defending champions. I'm sitting in the room with a coach who might be a little bit affected by that score right there. But Concord loses for the first time this season, and Manchester Memorial moves to 3-2. 3-2 in the season. They're close. That Portsmouth win was so close. They could have easily, but 3-2, and Memorial absolutely keeps himself in that playoff race because that was a conference win last night for Manchester Memorial. So great win for that crew over there. Londonderry rolls over Keene. It's a rebuilding year for John Lupa and his crew up in Keene. Londonderry rolls 41-7. Portsmouth with a 24-19 win over Manchester Central. They got up big. Central kind of couldn't make a run at them. Portsmouth sputtered a little bit in the second half, but wins another one right there, and they moved to 4-1 on the season. Brian Pafford and those guys. The Fighting McIsaacs of Spalding High School, 45-6 over Dover. Good win there for Spalding, and now Spalding kind of has set themselves up where they sort of control their own destiny in that East Division there. Nice W there. Laconia, and the game that we covered last night, I want to talk a lot about. Laconia upset St. Thomas in a back-and-forth game, 35-28. St. Thomas had 4th down and goal at the 1, threw it up in the corner. Nice pass by Steven Hedberg, but Jacob Philgate, a nice-looking little sophomore, really good athlete, knocks it away.
He's not little, though. He's about 6'2", yeah.
No, but he's going to be good. He's only a sophomore. And we're going to talk about a kid by the name today, Keith Schultz.
Yeah.
Who I found out last night he's a 15-year-old junior, 6'3", 225, 19 tackles last night for
He
Laconia.
was all over the field.
He had 13 last week against Hanover. So we'll talk about. I want to talk a lot about this game because it was one of. I got to say, one of the. I was telling Coach Hines, one of the most enjoyable football games I've been to since we've been doing this. I had a lot of fun at that game. Summersworth rolls 52-12 over Raymond. I'm just going to assume Elijah DeJoy had a huge game. I'll just throw that out there. Kennett with a 41-18 win over Hanover. Kennett remains undefeated. The 3 best teams always thought to be Kennett in Division II. Kennett, St. Thomas, and Wyndham, and Wyndham remains undefeated with them at 35-21 over Sauhegan. Sauhegan battled them, but Wyndham wins at 35-21 to remain undefeated. Good score, good win for Keith Jones' crew. Milford 35, Lebanon 14. The Laconia kids were very interested in this score after the game. I was telling them, I said, hey, Lebanon lost, and it made their night just a little better.
Right.
Finding out because, of course, they lost the opener. But Milford rolls to a 35-14 win over Lebanon. Merrimack Valley 48-26 over Kingswood. And Pembroke gets their first win of the season. Battle of teams that hadn't won a game. Pembroke 28-12 over Manchester West.
There's some games going on today. We've already talked about that Bedford-Exeter game tonight, 7 o'clock under the lights in Exeter. You got Pinkerton at BG Stello Stadium this afternoon, 1 o'clock kickoff. Coach Hines' son, Brockton, his team is going to host the Winnicott Warriors in Goffstown, 1:30. I assume you'll be at that game, Coach.
I'll be there early.
And hopefully I'll be there too. Not that I want my son's fall ball baseball game to get rained out this afternoon, but I certainly would love to go in my backyard and see this Winnicott Goffstown
game.
Yeah,
that's
that should be a
game.
lot of fun to watch. Unfortunately, the weather is not so great, and that's a grass field at Goffstown, so those tough conditions. You got Trinity at Plymouth. Coach Burns noticed you picked the Bobcats to win for the first time.
Not happy
on
with
the website.
Can't repeat what he said.
Picks.
Can't repeat what he said to me over text over the air.
Well, they got a chip on their shoulder going up to the land of Lenahan, minus Coach Lenahan. I'm sure he'll be there, though, today. You got Monadnock at Pelham. I think that's an interesting game going on in the Snake Pit. Is the football field called the Snake Pit, too? I know
There's
gym
no pits
is.
outside.
All right, well, maybe it's the grassy knoll near the Snake Pit, something like that. You got Conval at Sanborn, Hollis Brookline at John Stark. These are afternoon games. Your Golden Eagles traveling out to Langdon to
Saw
take
the
on
boys
Fall
last night at the
Mountain.
game.
The Wildcats. Yeah, they were at the game last night. You said
right.
Mac Troiano and the rest of the guys
Max Troiano,
over in Laconia. Very, very nice. You got Stevens at Franklin, Newfound at Mascoma. Here's another interesting one in the local area around Manchester. Winnisquam at Campbell this afternoon.
Yeah. Christian Serrano, go see that kid play football. Boy,
Now, is that his brother, Andrew?
There's Andrew and Christian. Yeah, they're both brothers.
So Andrew's the younger brother?
Andrew is senior, and Christian is a junior. Andrew's a good hoop player, too, but he didn't play hoop last year. And Christian is a first-team All-State Division III guard, so great athlete. Pat Roberti, the coach there, does a great job at Winnisquam. That'll be a fun game, too.
Bow, they put their unbeaten mark on the line. They're going to play at Epping Newmarket this afternoon, and then Farmington Newt plays at Bishop Brady. So what we do now, Coach, is we kind of like to single out specific games. We got to take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to have you pick out a specific game, a result that you thought was interesting. We'll have Dave do it. I'll do the same as well. We'll get into the game. We were talking about the Laconia-St. Thomas game. A lot of people thinking St. Thomas was headed for a showdown in D2, most likely with Wyndham. Not so fast. We'll see what happens with that. Quick timeout, New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and 96.7.
These guys know their high school football. It's the New Hampshire High School Football Show with Pete Terrier and Dave Haley.
Well, back here on the program, we're in the middle of week 5 of the New Hampshire high school football season, already halfway through. It is just zipping by, and it's going to be a lot of fun over the month of October. And then, of course, as we get into the playoffs in November, special guest in studio, Kurt Hines, the head coach of the Bedford Bulldogs, is with us. We've been in studio with him before. Really enjoyed talking with him. Coach has a big game tonight. Actually, 2 big games in the Hines family. You got Goffstown at Winnicott. Kurt Kurt's son, Broxton, plays for the Grizzlies. And then tonight, it's Exeter and Bedford. Before we get into that, I want to ask you about something that happened at Bedford High School earlier this week with the bomb threat that was emailed in to a couple of schools, I guess, around New England. One of them being Bedford High School. I think there was a middle school, which is actually connected to Bedford High School. What did you hear about that? I know that they didn't find anything, but how crazy was that? I mean, to get that phone call or the email or whatever it is that alerts you, hey, don't come to school today because there's someone's emailed in a bomb threat.
Yeah, I found out about a half an hour before it was sent out to the public, if you will, that there was no school. But the sad reality is, as soon as I heard there was a bomb threat, my first thought was, well, this is a waste of a day. I think the society we live in, you think it's a bomb threat, it's just some kid being stupid or someone being stupid. Fortunately, that's what it was. It wasn't anything real. But we weren't able to practice on Wednesday, which was not a positive thing going into any week, especially against Exeter. But I think it did us some good. We had some kids banged up, some kids sick. And I'm an optimist to the core, so the extra day we'll find out tonight, but it may have helped us.
Okay. Well, let's talk about when we were looking down at the scoreboard at the end of the night, especially a night when you do not play. Your game is not until tonight, so you got to kind of absorb things that happened last night. I'm not sure if you were out at a game last night doing some scouting or whatever, but what game stuck out to you personally and said, wow, that was a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, or, hey, man, I was flat out shocked about this result?
I'd have to go with the Concord Memorial game. With all due respect to the Memorial and Coach Colacord, he's a phenomenal guy, great coach. I didn't see that score coming. So, I know they're a good program, and I know Concord had a tough injury this year with one of the wide receivers, but that score was not one that I predicted by any means.
What about you, Dave?
I mean, the game that we were at was the biggest surprise to me, and a lot of people. Now, in that first quarter, St. Thomas went down and scored fairly easily on their second possession, went up 7-0. And my father went to the game last night with us. He was there for a half. He gets cold. What are you going to do? Old people. But he, I said to him, I go, this thing could get away quick. And Laconia absolutely responded, came back down the field. And then it was back and forth from there on out. But there were a lot of coaches that were sort of dubious of Laconia's chances last night. And I think they proved to everybody that, I mean, does that look like a playoff team to you, that Laconia team? And boy, do they hit. Boy, do they hit.
Yeah.
I mean, they are physical. They'll throw you down. You run the side, they'll throw you down. And I just thought Matt Swarmstead made so many plays. It was just one of those games where there weren't a lot of fumbles. I don't even know if anyone fumbled. There was a couple of interceptions, but, it was really back and forth, very well played. There weren't a ton of penalties. There were goal line stands. There were, huge third down conversions. Laconia couldn't run the ball. Kyle Chason is the leading rusher in that division. They couldn't run the ball at all, but they adjusted. They started having him run wheel routes, and they started getting him the ball in space. And just a huge win. I think they proved it. I talked to Eric Kumba, the coach for St. Thomas, after the game. He was obviously very disappointed. But I think, very disappointed. But, he said, hey, we didn't make the plays we usually make. We didn't make the throws we usually make, the catches, so forth, we missed tackles. But, he said that his staff could sort of kind of see that they were being built too high and they needed to come back to earth a little bit. So I don't think it hurts St. Thomas that much. They're going to win that conference, and I still would pick them to win it or to be right there in the end. So.
Yeah, and I was really thinking it was St. Thomas, Wyndham in D2. All due respect to Kennett, I just have not seen Kennett over the last couple of years. So
we're going to find out real soon about Kennett.
Yeah,
they're going to play Laconia.
And Kennett, is in the division with Laconia, with Lebanon. So it's another situation where you've got three teams vying for two spots, similar in your division, Coach. And you witnessed that firsthand last year. I hate to bring up the bad subject. Your team, Bedford, Concord, and Central, and it came down to that winner-take-all game in the last game of the regular season at your place. And Central, I think, shocked the world by knocking you guys off. And if you look in that D1 South Conference right now, you got Londonderry, you got Salem, and you got Pinkerton, and Dave talked about it, the Halloween night game. I already flat out committed us to that game.
You should. I'd love to be there too. Absolutely.
I mean, that one, someone is going to be a very good football team in that conference especially, and is not going to the playoffs. So the question, I guess, Coach, is does that need to be changed? Should we have it where the top 8 teams in the division get in, regardless of conference? or do you kind of like the way it is? I can't imagine that you like it after what happened to you guys last year.
You know, what happened last year stung, but the better team won that night. You know, as much as it hurts to say, I personally think the top 8 teams should make it. But that being said, I think having the 3 divisions and the conferences, 4 conferences within each, is so much better than having 6 divisions in a state as small as New Hampshire. So I definitely feel like we've taken a step in the right direction.
I know, Dave, you're very fond of the Portsmouth program, the coaching staff. You've been friends with a lot of those guys for a long time. And we talked last week. I made a comment about them complaining about it, meaning mostly the school community, the parents, whatever, the fans of that Portsmouth Clippers program. But yet, once again, they come into a Division I power. You know, they go to Central, and I know Central's winless this year. This is not the same Central team that we've had around for several years. But Portsmouth able to come to Manchester in Gill Stadium and win a game against a team that, you know, supposedly is a stronger program than them. So that goes to say something about what Portsmouth is building over there. And they've got some talent. They've got some young talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of the point, I'd love to hear you jumping on this, Coach, but I think kind of the point is, we'll use Keene as an example. Keene was in Division II, and then last year, you know, they lined up to Division I. I have no doubt that Portsmouth, I think I picked them to be the team in the playoffs coming out of that division. And I still today, I mean, I think it's going to be them and Exeter. And they do it. And I really believe they'll be in the playoffs. But it's then when you get down to the Bedfords and the Pinkertons and those big schools with like a lot of kids on the sidelines and some depth and so forth. And Kurt, because of the work he does and the school he's at, he's got 130 kids in that program and so forth. And I'm not saying they're all, you know, Letterman or something like that, but the depth. I think if you're Portsmouth, getting in, but Portsmouth's a team that just competes for championships every year. So do they have a chance to win Division I? Do they have a chance to play Pinkerton at UNH and beat them? No, I don't think they do. So that's kind of where that's what happened to Keene last year, right? They beat Nashua South. Sorry to bring that back up. But they beat Nashua South. Then they played Pinkerton at home, and they got rolled. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of what those schools, making the playoffs. But in Division II last year, they could have lost on a week like this, but still said, hey, we can win the championship. And I don't know if they can win the championship. And I think that's what the quote-unquote smaller schools kind of deal. Do you know what I mean, Kurt? I mean, kind of.
Absolutely. You know, and it being that my son plays for Goffstown. Very much it's close to my heart as far as the school. That Goffstown isn't that much smaller than Bedford, but Coach Huff is doing a phenomenal job. I'm a big fan of his, and he's rebuilding that program. But they're not getting as many kids coming out yet. So it's a similar situation for them.
I think the concern in Portsmouth, somebody pretty prominent in that community said this to me. He said, watch out for this Portsmouth team. And I don't mean to focus everything on Portsmouth, but you bring up, I think, a really good example, so I kind of want to jump on it. And he said, Portsmouth wins every year, and Portsmouth's a town that's used to winning. And so the kids come out because they like to win, and they like to be in those big games. They had Plymouth game last year. It was incredible on the road. And Portsmouth, that staff has done such an incredible job winning in Bedford and winning in Goffstown and, you know, places where maybe people didn't expect them to. People worry about, are the kids going to keep coming out if they don't keep winning? So, for example, say they go 4-4 the next couple of years. Are you going to get as many kids that keep coming out? Because now they don't have a chance to play in those championship games. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the concern for the small schools going up, because they want those kids to keep coming, because you do see an influx when Bedford started winning. And, you know, it still feels like a newer program, even though it isn't. Those kids start coming out because 4th and 5th graders, I always used to say, when you're in a Final Four basketball, and say Spalding goes, look at all the Rochester kids that go to the game with their parents or their uncles or whatever, and they're in 4th and 5th grade. And those kids, I know I did when I was a little kid. I went to a Final Four, and I said, I want to play. This is crazy. Look at these, you know, all these people and the cheerleaders and the noise. And so I think that's the big part of it, is like you want to build that momentum. And when you're a smaller school in a big division, it does make it a little harder.
All right, I want to take a timeout now, come back. I want to preview this game against Exeter tonight. I think this is a real good football game on paper. I have already gone on record and predicted Bedford to win the football game. I just don't think Exeter has the offensive firepower to hang with Bedford, knowing the defense that Bedford brings to the table. I'm not sure it's going to be one of those, you know, it was 15-3 last week. Exeter win a Connett. I don't know. I remember Exeter playing a 13-3 game out in Keene last year, Exeter winning that game. I think Bedford's going to be able to score some more points than that. We'll talk about that. We got Coach Hines in studio, Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and 96.7.
It's the best local coverage of New Hampshire high school football. The New Hampshire High School Football Show on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Out in 96.7 country tonight, Bill Ball Stadium, Eustis Field in Exeter. I think it's the game of the day, maybe even the game of the weekend in New Hampshire high school football. And we got the head coach of one of the teams that's playing in that game. No, Coach Ball didn't get up, drive in here to our studios in Manchester to sit with us. But we've got Coach Kurt Hines from Bedford with us. And Coach is very, very amped up about this game. You actually just revealed something to us during the break that you've never actually been to Bill Ball Stadium before. You haven't played those guys. So this is going to is this going to be like one of those, first time at Fenway Park, you walk in, you're like, this is pretty cool. Is that what it's going to be like for you?
There may be a little bit of that. Yeah, absolutely. I had mentioned off air that nothing but tremendous respect for Coach Ball and his entire program. He's got a stadium named after him, for goodness sake. So it's going to be a great feeling. But once the whistle blows, it's football. So it really doesn't matter where you are. It matters who you're playing, and then we prepare for that. But I'm just ready to get going.
So does home field advantage make a big difference in football? In basketball, you got the rims and kind of, your hometown rims. And in baseball, there's kind of dimensions of the field and maybe the views and the angles. What about football? They all sort of, to us, look the same. But is there a home field advantage as defined as there is in other sports?
I think, first of all, I hate to go full circle back to Portsmouth, but when we were in Division III in the state championship, when we hosted Portsmouth, we had home field advantage, and it was no advantage whatsoever. That being said, I think there is when it comes down to turf or grass. Aside from that, I'm not sure if it's as big as some people make it. I think the kids, if the kids you coach buy into what you're selling as far as your off-season workouts and the offense and defense you run and everything, they're going to buy into how much of a deal you make out of being home or away. So I think it's more convenient to be home. But 2 years ago in the Division II, when we had to go out to Keene. It's a tough crowd out there, and it's a tough trip, and it was a heck of a game.
I was going to ask you, what are some of the best atmospheres, or maybe not? It doesn't feel like the best when you're sitting there and everyone's yelling at you. But I mean, what are some of the best atmospheres you've gone against?
I
Keene
always
being one, but
having coached at Sauhegan for years, I always liked going up to Plymouth. As painful as it is to say that, and one of my assistant coaches, Coach Donahue, our D coordinator, played at Plymouth and spent 4 years there without losing once. But that's just a great setting, the community there, and also Laconia. A few times we went up there. That field,
the new place.
I haven't seen the new place.
The old place.
Beautiful.
I'll tell you, we used to have the Players Lounge on my website, and I used to ask the kids a bunch of questions. One was like, "What's your favorite opposing field?" I'm telling you, kids from Trinity, kids from Hanover, kids from Plymouth, they'd always say Laconia.
Yeah, it's such a tight knit, close little place. You feel like you're in a boxing ring.
Yeah,
or an octagon, so to speak.
It's beautiful now. People.
They just built a new stadium there. It's actually sponsored, Bank of New Hampshire Stadium at Jim Fitzgerald Field. Fitzgerald, I think I saw him at the game. I met him in the early 90s when I first started doing this thing, and he was the coach of Laconia back then, and I believe I kind of ran into him last night. I wasn't quite sure if it was him, so I didn't want to say anything, but he's got a field named after him too. And this place is sort of like Bedford, but like on steroids Bedford. I mean, it's a stadium and just beautiful surroundings. And we've got the video up on the website from the game last night against St. Thomas, Laconia 35-28 victory. If you want to check it out, it is on nhsportspage.com. You can click and check it out. But let's get back to your game tonight. You've been talking, in the press, and you're like a master of this. We don't have any size. We got to rely on our speed. I mean, last year you had a big team. This year, not as much, but the speed on this turf is definitely beneficial to you. I'm wondering about the weather conditions. I know playing on a turf field in the rain it's not the same as playing on a grass field in the rain, but what kind of effect, the slippery ball, do you kind of make some last-minute plans to account for that, or are you looking at the forecast towards the end of the week closer to the game and say, hey, we might have some rain coming in there? How does that affect the whole situation?
Once again, and I get, my friends making fun of me being such an optimist sometimes, but I don't see it as a big deal. In the grass field, once again, it's a little bit different. We're a spread team, and we like to run the ball a little bit more this year, a lot more this year, and we've been getting better at throwing it. This past week, we did get the balls wet a little bit in practice and kind of get Mike comfortable with throwing the ball, and the centers, snapping the ball. But once again, it's football. So the weather, I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't be upset at all if the skies open up and there's no rain. But it's going to come down to ball control on both sides of the ball, turnovers, and ultimately I think which team wants it more. These two completely opposite styles, if you will, as far as offense and defense, I believe. And it's going to come down to two well-coached programs and who wants it more at the end.
I'm not very good at math at all. I think we should just go right out and say that. But 23 points in 4 games, that doesn't sound like a big number to me. So what makes this defense you have, which I've called elite, I believe it, is what makes this defense so good? What do you think the strengths of this defense are?
To go back to what Pete said, speed kills. And I always say to the kids in the offseason, speed only kills if you can control it. There are certain kids who are very fast, and they're all-state track kids, but they can't transfer that to the football field. And our kids have bought into the system once again that most teams we face are going to be bigger than us. And we've got to be relentless to the ball and just go in there and realize you have to get 11 hats to the ball. And we haven't been as good as we want to be yet as far as creating turnovers. The picks are nice. We've got a few of those each game. A very lucky fumble recovery for a scoop and score against Spalding last week. But we need to get better at getting 11 hats to the ball.
I was just going to say, a game like this, I mean, Exeter, where again, it has the 14-10 feel to it, that would be huge today. Those kind of turnovers can be huge, both ways,
Absolutely. And that's something we've seen Exeter do. I've seen film of them before. We've never coached against them. But they're turning the ball over a little bit more this year, I believe, than in the past. And as are we, which it's not good for either program.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to come by. But when the turnovers do happen tonight, we're going to make sure we capitalize on them.
I've heard people mention that, Velus, he's a converted quarterback this year. He was really a receiver throughout his entire life. I think he told me that he'd never played quarterback before.
Correct.
But people out there question, can this kid throw the football? And I think you guys have tried to mix that in a little bit, maybe just to give defenses something to think about. But his older brother, Andy Velus, he was a receiver in high school too. When he was at BG, he wasn't even the quarterback. He was on that great Bishop Girton team, I think 2009, but he was a receiver, and then he ended up playing quarterback in college. Now he's the starter at UNH after the injury to Goldrich. Can Mike Velus throw the football? I mean, is he a legitimate quarterback that can throw the football down the field when you need it?
He can. I've got nothing but love for Mike Velus. He's such a great kid. He's confident, but he's not cocky. He's easily coached. He's just got to get more comfortable in trusting his offensive line. Sometimes the big plays that he makes happen look great on camera. When we break it down on film, he should have stepped up into the pocket a little bit more. But he can definitely throw the football, and we have the receivers around him and the running backs to get out there in space and make things happen. So we're going to see more of that as the season goes on. You
know what tells me how good a kid Mike Velus is? Last year was on the basketball team of Bedford. And Bedford is famous for a couple of things, namely just very, very lengthy rosters. I mean, I showed you the Bedford football roster. I had to tape 3 different pages together. Yeah, it's like the phone book. Well, Mike Fitzpatrick, the Bedford basketball coach, had a roster of like 18 kids. Most teams carry like 12 kids. He had like 18. But Mike Velus was like number 18 on that roster. And a lot of times kids that are other sports stars, they can't handle being a reserve or really last guy on the bench like Mike Velus was last year. He stuck it through the whole season, was very, very supportive, and barely played at all for that team.
Isn't he going to a college scholarship like lacrosse, right?
That may change. Yeah, he's already been offered to Bryant.
Okay.
Great school, great lacrosse program. But I truly believe, I already know more offers are going to come on the table.
Yeah, for football or
correct.
Yeah,
for football. Well, for both, but yes, for football.
And do you think that it would be quarterback offers, or obviously having a brother
I'd say just
playing for UNH
yeah.
helps? But, I mean, what kind of offer would they have these kids play a different position probably in college?
I think, what Dave just said, we try to preach to our kids. There are certain kids we say, hey, listen, you're an offensive tackle. That's all you'll ever be. And that's a great role to play, but you're not going to be a center or a guard for us. Then there are kids like Mike Velus that we say, listen, you're an athlete. We can put you at the slot position. We could put you at wide receiver. We have him at safety. We know without any doubt we could put him outside linebacker and have things happen. And we're getting a lot more kids, especially the younger kids we have. We have 5 sophomores starting this year that are buying into that, mentality of being a versatile athlete, knowing multiple positions, which puts a lot on them, but it helps the program tremendously.
We saw after the game last night, Matt Swarmstead, who I talked to, a Laconia quarterback, the Plymouth State coaches were talking to him. Two of them, pulled him aside and were talking to him after the game. And I'm sure that's a great example of a kid. He's not going to play quarterback in college, but that's a kid that you're like, this kid's a winner. He's got good instincts. He's fast. He's athletic, and so forth and so on. I think Julian Edelman was a quarterback in college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was catching 100 balls a year.
We'll get to a break in a moment, but I want to ask you about a signature win for your program. I think you might have had one at the beginning of last year when you beat Pinkerton. I think it was a 14-12 final score in that game. Concord actually turned out to be the team to beat. You guys played Concord as tough as anybody did last year, losing by a touchdown in Concord, and had a chance to tie the game late. I was at that game. But I'm not so sure that the Bulldogs have had that real signature win yet. And I don't know that it's tonight if you guys beat Exeter. I think it would have to happen maybe in a D1 championship game. But you guys have had a lot of quality wins. But I don't know that you've had that program-defining win just yet. Would you agree with that?
I would. It's my 7 years head coach. It's still a very new program. In some ways, it seems like it's 2 years old. In some ways, it seems like I've been there for 12 years. Each year, we have more and more defining wins, but we haven't had that statement yet. I think tonight's game, if we do our job, could be one step closer to that. But I agree with you. It's going to come down to a real big game.
What about the win? Did you guys beat Keene in the semifinals a couple of years ago, and then you played Winnicott in the final? That's
the Keene game is one I'll never forget. It came
I was
down
going to say,
half
it's
a
pretty
second.
close.
Yeah, half a second on the clock. We called a timeout, and that's a game I'll never forget.
We did that on video. I think we got over 1,000 views because I think I watched the end of that game like 4 or 5 times, like rewound it.
What I remember about that game was Keene actually went for 2, gutsy call to take the lead.
They did,
and really kind of end the game. It seemed there was like a minute left. That was James Caparell was a senior that year, and you guys got the ball like on the 24-yard line to start your final drive with like a minute left, and there was a big pass play down the sideline that kind of put you in the red
Collins,
zone.
I think, yeah.
And you know what? Yeah, Brian Collins.
Yeah.
And
right.
You guys ended up scoring on a Caparell keeper, like on the final play of the game, or
Correct.
just a few seconds left. But that was a whale of a game.
Second.
But you guys were favored to win that game. I mean, I think people were, when you looked at it before the game and you said, okay, Bedford against Keene, who's going to win this game? I think most people picked Bedford in that game.
So you mean like an upset or something like that?
Well, I'm just saying a win that you don't expect. It's like, okay, here it is. Like Londonderry. Here, take this for example.
Poor Kurt. The only person he can upset right now is Pinkerton.
Londonderry. Well, that's the way I look at it.
I mentioned to my team in practice yesterday, in one of the articles, it talked about how they were going with a power poll, and it said some things never change in New Hampshire football. I said, guys, we're a 7-year-old program, and to be in that category of some things that never change, it's we're doing a lot right, but we have a lot to improve upon.
You mentioned the power poll, and as you know, I'm a voter on the Union Leader WGIR WMUR football power poll. I moved you guys up to second this week behind Pinkerton, just simply because I thought you've been much more dominant than Concord had, who was also 4-0 going into last night. And Concord, of course, loses to Manchester Memorial. You guys playing an Exeter team that I have ranked 8th right now. So I don't know that this helps you a lot. I don't see this one, unless BG shocks the world and knocks off Pinkerton this afternoon. I don't see you getting into number 1 unless you beat Pinkerton. And I don't see them losing because they've already played the iron of their schedule. But you guys, as a coaching staff, follow that and the team, because I hear the kids talking about it and they want to know. And how much stock do you put into that poll?
I use it as motivation. When someone. Honestly, when someone votes against us, it kind of gives me a little bit more drive. I kind of like that.
What do you consider a vote against you? Me saying Pinkerton is number 1 and you guys are number 2, is that a vote against you?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, Pinkerton is the program to beat right now, without a doubt. Just week to week when someone says, hey, Exeter's going to win.
When Dave Haley
I
picks
understand.
Exeter to win the game.
I love that, though. There's nothing better than being the underdog. I look at us as being the underdogs tonight. I truly do. They're a bigger team. They I don't want to say better coached, but nothing but respect for Coach Ball in this program. We're going to their house, even though I didn't say this, not a lot of stock going to, home field advantage. But I like the mentality selling to the kids that we are underdogs and we've got something, every game we win puts a larger target on our back, which is a great thing and we welcome that. But it just means we've got to come ready to fight each week.
See, when Dave Haley picks against you, you're automatically the underdog. That's the power. It's the power. Even if everybody else thinks Bedford's going to win.
There you go.
It's the power I wield.
There you go.
We will take a timeout, come back, and head towards our final segment of this show, talking with Kurt Hines, the Bedford football coach, kind enough to join us in studio this morning. Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. Don't forget the video cast being filmed right now. John Kesty behind the camera. We'll have this thing up on the website. The game of the week that we covered last night in the Lakes region, the video highlights from that up on the website as well. I haven't had a chance to even watch it yet.
Go check that out.
I definitely want to see it. We'll talk about that game when we come back. The New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Back to the best local coverage of New Hampshire high school football on the New Hampshire High School Football Show. Saturday mornings from 8 to 9 on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Well, I'm sure our in-studio guest loves this rejoiner music. Shout at the devil. Kurt Hines, a very religious
Love it.
man.
No, I love the 80s music.
You into the crew?
I love it.
You got to come in here with us on a Saturday morning. I mean, we're rocking out to the 80s hair bands.
AC/DC or something.
You're familiar with some D2 football as well, because you guys have made your way up through the ranks of the New Hampshire High School Division. Started in D3, move up to D2, now in D1, and you guys have done very well up the ladder every step of the way. So I'm sure you have an affinity for the smaller leagues, the smaller schools. And last night, Dave and I were fortunate enough to be up in Laconia for the Laconia-St. Thomas game. St. Thomas, a high-scoring team, high-powered offense, fast-paced. I mean, that's a fast-break offense for sure. Reminds me a lot of what Nashua South was like under Trevor Knight for the last few years. They just get to the line. They spread you out all over the field. They got big receivers. They got shifty running backs. Very impressive-looking team offensively. A good pass rush that we saw on display last night. But I'll tell you what, Laconia and their quarterback, Matt Swarmstead, who before the game we were sitting around a table at Patrick's Pub in Guilford talking, and the word on Swarmstead was, yeah, he's not a very good throwing quarterback. 21 for 30 last night. 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, in the face of pressure, throwing screen passes, throwing it down the field. This kid impressed me big time.
He had a play in the first quarter, very early in the game, and he's a 3-year starter. He started as a sophomore, and they struggled. They didn't have a line in front of him 3 years ago, and he was young, and he's not a big kid at all. He's pretty short and small kid. He had a play where he dropped back in the pocket, and then after about 2 or 3 seconds, St. Thomas, I think it was Jesse Quintero, their really good defensive end, broke free, and they started coming in on him. And I watched him kind of see them come in, keep his head down the field. He then took a big step backwards to buy himself that 1 extra second, and then right as they were about to hit him, he put it right over the middle to Kyle Chase on in stride. I mean, he's not a college quarterback. He won't ever play there. That was like a college quarterback kind of move. Like, he waited, and he didn't panic, and he didn't start running around. He didn't put his head down. And I saw that play, and this was like, it was 7-0. I said, wow, this kid is not that bad. Like, he's pretty good. And I mean, he made play after play. He made, you'll see in the highlights, Doug Flutie-like escapes where he got out. And I mean, 3rd and 11s where he absolutely needs to. And the kid we haven't mentioned yet, Brendan Mooney, the wide receiver for Laconia. Yeah. They couldn't run with Kyle Chase on, but they had this kid on the edge at wide receiver, Brendan Mooney, who probably like 6'3", good size, and they went at St. Thomas's smaller cornerbacks all night long. And give Craig Cousins I give Craig Cousins a ton of credit, the coach for Laconia, on finding that mismatch and going at it. But really impressive. I think that whole division last night really, every team in that division had to be like, wow, Laconia. Like, that's another team we're going to have to deal with. And thing we haven't mentioned yet, I want to hear your comment on, Pete, because we haven't talked about it. When St. Thomas went for it on 4th and 1.
From their own, 22-yard line, John? I mean, me and John kind of comment, because what we do is we film the entire game. I'm up next to John with the camera, and we were on top of the press box. Great view. And just see the whole field and well lit. Sometimes you're on top of the press box at night. There's no lights up there. I can't see the roster. But this was great. And I said, Eric Kumba, I know he's got confidence in his offense. Will he go for it on this situation? Because they were able to move the football pretty much at will last night.
For 28 points.
Laconia stiffened up when they had to, especially late in the game. But I just felt that he was going to go for it. He went for it on his own 22, I think it was. And they gave the ball to a big big offensive lineman, Josh Carlisle, number 70.
70, yeah.
And he was set up as a fullback. They gave it to him. He got stuffed. And turnover on downs. Laconia goes down, scores the touchdown that I think put them up.
Schultz ran it in, yeah.
Yep. And that was gutsy, and it ended up backfiring on Coach Kumba right there.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Coach? I mean, just in those kind of instances, maybe not this particular game, but, having faith in your offense. And
You have to. You have to have faith in your offense, and you have to be willing to I think one of the things that, and you guys know this very well, but the fans may not realize as much, but from week to week, you realize what the tempo is of your practice. You realize what you feel comfortable with. I know I've made decisions like that in the past, and it's been successful, and you feel like a hero. And I've made decisions like that where it backfires, and everyone's pointing fingers at you, as they should. So I'll never second-guess a coach, and I know you guys aren't doing this, but, for making that decision. Because if it works, it was like the two-point conversion against Keene in the semifinals. When they made that, if it didn't work, he looks like a fool. It worked, and he looks like a genius for 53 seconds.
Their only loss of the season, Laconia, was the opener. They lost, I think it was 22-21 to Lebanon, and they went for 2 at the end of the game, or maybe it was 21-20, I don't know. But they went for 2 at the end. And last night, Pete asked Craig Cousins, I think on film, he said, "Do you have any second guessing?" He's like, "No, you go for it, and you're on the road, and you believe in your team, and you can't second guess those kind of decisions." Exactly. And maybe St. Thomas's defense, you don't know. Maybe Eric Kumba, who honestly terrific coach, but even better offensive mind. He's terrific. Other coaches rave about him. He may have felt like his defense was really tired, you know what I mean? And he felt like we got to go for it here because I don't know if we can stop them again and, and so forth. You don't know what's going through, but boy, what a game. Everybody should watch those highlights.
We got about 3 minutes left, Coach, and I still got to give Dave 15 seconds because I know his Fighting Irish got a huge one.
A tough one.
Stanford, the Cardinal, coming in.
I've been ridiculous on my picks. The last 2 weeks I've said they were going to score 31, Notre Dame. And they've scored. Last week I said 31-14, and I think the final score was 31-15. So I think people should listen here. Write this down. Put your mortgages on the line. Put it all. 17-14 Notre Dame today over Stanford.
All right. Now, I got to ask you, Pinkerton, have you seen him in person?
Not this year.
Okay.
Well, in Jamboree. The Queen City Jamboree.
You saw him at the Jamboree, and I think they
conquered.
They conquered. I think they shut him out in that game. I assume you've watched the video on our website of them. Have you seen Londonderry?
I have not.
All right. Is Pinkerton, you think, the team to beat at this point right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And why so?
Hands down. Just their perennial powerhouse. I know the win we had last year against them. It was a 2-point win, first game of the year, and as well as we did, and as proud of our guys as I was and am, I think they probably came into that game a little confident, overly confident maybe. Until you knock them off, I think they're the team to beat. If Concord hadn't been winning such close ones this year, being the reigning champs, I think it would have been them. But Pinkerton's they're number one right now for a reason.
All right, I got about 1 minute left. Finish this sentence. Do not sleep on
Bedford.
On Bedford. Besides Bedford.
Gosh, do not sleep on. Looking at the state, I'd have to say Londonderry. I don't think many people are, but I think Jimmy Lozon's doing a phenomenal job there. He always gets the kids excited, and their team, whether it's this year or not, they're going to continue to get better.
Okay.
I think that team might be Salem, but yeah, Salem's very good too.
What about my Nashua South Panthers?
Oh yeah, they are.
They're all of a sudden 3-2 after an 0-2 start.
Yeah.
They got Alvern. Alvern, I think, came back to earth last night a little bit.
By the way, no one buried South. Like we always said, this team has plenty of time, veteran crew, great coach. So yeah. Yeah, South absolutely is a team you don't want to sleep on.
They seem to have turned it around. They went out to Plastow last night and plastered the Owls, putting up 49 points.
Pretty good Owls team, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're pretty good. We got just a little bit of time left, enough time to say, Coach, thanks so much. I'm angling to make the trip to Exeter tonight.
It'll be worth it.
Hoping for a spot in the press box where it's nice and dry. Thanks so much for coming in. For Dave Haley, I'm Pete Terrier. Have a good night, everybody.